Mafia came out back on the 28th of August 2002. I literally wasn't even a thought, let alone even born. So it's safe to say I missed out on this game when it launched. However, I have had the series on my backlog for a really long time. With remasters out there, I was aware diving into the games wouldn't be too tricky, but it's just one of those things I never really got around to doing. It just never quite felt like the right time. But considering my favourite open world crime game franchise is dead now, I decided to dip my toes into the Mafia franchise, and oh man, I have some very interesting thoughts on this game. So in this video, I'll be doing a review of Mafia 1, more in specific the definitive version. So how is this game in 2023? Has this 2-decade-old story aged well? What's good and what's bad? Well, grab your fedoras and let's get into it. So let's start with story. Oh god, where to begin? This is one of the few times when playing a story, the hook was almost instant. Usually when playing a game, despite it having an awesome story, it kinda takes a minute to set the scene and pull you into that atmosphere. With Mafia, within the first couple cutscenes, I was totally immersed. The game sets you up with this flashback style storytelling, in which you, Tommy, are telling a detective you need to leave town and keep your family safe. The game then proceeds to follow the events that led you to the point you're at within the starting sequence, basically explaining how you got to where you're at and what it was like to join a Mafia family. I won't spoil too much within the story, but it's gripping, full of heartbreak, great characters, awesome pacing, which at no point leads you to feeling overwhelmed, some really cool and interesting moments which all consist of awesome quotables and pure dark moments too. Seriously, the game somehow manages to have characters that sound so badass and wise at moments and psychopathic and crazy in other moments. It's done incredibly well. I was really impressed by the acting, which is quite surprising to say honestly. I've played a lot of games, but this game, some of the acting, I don't know, it just feels so passionate. I've played games with 10 times the detail and animations that feel half as lively as some of these characters do. All parts are played exceptionally well, and whoever played Sam and Soleri need a pay rise. They did an exceptional job, same with Tommy and Paul too, heck, they all did. My mind was blown. The story for me was a smash hit, 100% the strongest part about the game. It's told incredibly well and passionately. It has some incredible plot points with a lot of on the edge of your seat moments sprinkled throughout the story. The story's length didn't seem particularly drawn out, but it wasn't short by any means. I'd say you could probably beat the story in about 12 to 15 hours, and that's if you only just focused on doing the story. It doesn't seem to waste a single second, and I didn't sense any ounces of filler whatsoever.
Our business is protection. But who's gonna pay up when they learn we can't even protect one of our own as she walks home from work?
So what do you want us to do?
Teach these boys a lesson. Break every bone in their bodies, put them in wheelchairs, bust their faces up so bad even their mothers can't look at them without screaming.
So how's the map? I'd say it's pretty good for the most part. It has some quite nice views and it's set in a really cool setting. There's tons of life from the NPCs in the city, there's different areas with totally different vibes going for it. The colour palette, which is a huge thing for me as everybody knows, is actually quite nice. It's not overly saturated to the point it burns your eyes out. But that horrible greyness you see in so many games just isn't here, which to me is just a huge point in its favour. Roads, however, are laid out in a bit of a tricky way, truthfully. Sometimes when driving, it can feel a little overly hard. Whether that's me just being bad at driving or the roads being a bit cramped, I'll let you decide. But for the most part, the map gets the job done, and it does it well. Now, is it my favourite map in gaming? Not exactly, but it's not bad at all. So how's the combat in this game? It's pretty fun. Challenging, don't get me wrong, but fun. I played it on normal because I'm too scared to go to hard and my ego can't handle me playing on easy, so I felt I got a pretty mixed balance when it came to gunfights. I had to pay attention and not rush, but I also didn't feel like a glass cannon. Health packs and ammo are placed around a good amount, but my one nitpick would be that ammo is still a little bit scarce. I kinda wish we could have just stored more. Speaking of nitpicks, get ready for my biggest nitpick with the game. Stealth. Now, it's not all bad honestly. I'm a huge fan of any open world crime game that incorporates stealth into it. It still really does spice up the gameplay. However, I do feel it's a tad bit janky at times. Sometimes I struggle to gauge whether an enemy will be able to spot me. Sometimes I go for the silent takedown and my character just throws a right hook and alerts everyone. That happened a few times and I have to say it was quite annoying. And other times, it just makes me want to cry with how iffy certain things can be. But it's not bad. And a lot of that probably does come down to me speeding through the story and not fully taking the time to learn all of the mechanics. Overall though, I'd say stealth left me a bit more frustrated than I'd have liked, but I'm glad it was included anyway. It did spice up the gameplay, as I said. So how are the graphics and performance? Now, I'm playing on the Series S and I didn't have literally one frame drop. It was smooth sailing the whole time. A couple bugs here and there, some weird visual glitches happened in the cutscenes. I kind of wish I recorded some of them, but for the most part, it was pretty good, and graphically the game was stunning. It has this really cool cinematic approach that kind of makes me feel like I'm watching a Mafia movie, which I imagine was intended. The lighting is really good, the models for the most part are really good, and I'd say that the game looks pretty half decent. UI is really good too, which is always nice. A good UI will go unnoticed, but a bad UI will kill the game, so I want to show some love there. So yeah, for the most part, the game graphically not only holds up well, but is stylized in a really cool and interesting way. So since I mentioned how the graphics affected the atmosphere of the game, I kind of want to talk about the atmosphere as its own section. The time period the game is set between is 1932 and 1938, which is a really interesting time. All the cars, people, etc. match the time period as you'd expect, but one really cool element was how the radio matched the time period too. I remember towards the back end of the game I was driving a car and I just hear on the radio someone talk about how a certain prominent German figure was on the offensive and could possibly be starting war, and how America was kind of confused on whether or not to get involved, and I just thought that was a really small but cool feature. Something they didn't really have to add, but it just adds so much to the immersion and atmosphere. It was kind of something that blew my mind as a small detail. I also really like how cops take note of your speed and how you drive and such. It sounds kind of tedious, but don't worry, it really isn't. If you're speeding down the streets, cops will actually take note of it and can begin to try and arrest you. It kind of just adds this bit of realism element to the game and removes that really annoying thing in every other game where driving for some reason is just totally overlooked by law enforcement. Just another really cool thing that adds to the atmosphere and experience, to be honest. The soundtrack in this game is really cool. During its epic moments, it's super chaotic and intense, while in its quieter and sometimes even somber moments, it perfectly matches the tone too. The radio stations all fit the time period really well, and it's just incredible for a music selection to be this good overall. I kinda just love how it all plays into the gameplay and cutscenes so well. However, when it comes to customization in this game, there's not much at all. Our character's outfit kinda just changes depending on the mission we're doing, and cars can really only be changed colours, nothing else. But honestly, I don't mind. When playing the game, I didn't get the vibe I was tired of any certain outfit, so it's always nice to know the game's keeping Tommy looking fresh. The weapon selection is pretty small. A couple shotguns, an SMG, a few pistols, and a couple melee weapons. Not much else, to be honest. No real harm here, but again, it's something I hope will be expanded upon when I get around to playing Mafia 2. One thing I really love about the game is how unapologetic the game is. It doesn't hold back from violence or dark scenes. It portrays the Mafia life exactly as it should be. It doesn't glamorize it, it simply tells a story, and it tells it well. I think this is a pretty underrated aspect, honestly. It's just amazing how the game pulls no punches. There's a good amount of variety in the missions too. There's not that constant go to an area, clear out the enemies and leave you see in a lot of games. Actually, it's just really quite diverse. Some stealth missions, some assassins missions, some guns blazing missions, some heist missions, and more. It's incredible again how no chapter feels wasted. So what drawbacks does the game have? There is a couple. As I mentioned earlier, stealth and driving can feel a tad bit janky at times, but I can handle it. I do wish the map had just a bit more interactivity. I never felt there was much reason to explore outside of pure curiosity. I feel if you're someone who's looking for that customization as mentioned earlier, you'll struggle to get on with the game. Another semi-major issue is simply that I never felt I had time to go off and do my own things. It always felt like I was following objectives the entire game. I think this could have been resolved with a missions tab that allows you to stop following missions at certain points, but again, I can handle it. As you can tell, when it comes to weak points, it simply comes down to a mix of nitpicks and things I kind of just miss in other games. But rarely does the game itself actually do anything I don't like. I mean, sure, I wish the map was a bit more interactive, but again, that's not the point of the game. So where does this leave us in 2023? In my eyes, Mafia Definitive Edition currently stands the test of time, and I expect it to for many years to come. With being a remake of a 20-year-old game, it does not in any way feel behind the times. It delivers an incredible story with depth, emotion, character, and some incredible writing. Its missions feature a plethora of styles, which will always keep the player engaged. Its combat, despite being a tad bit generic, does the job very well and allows the player to use skill, situational awareness, and a semi-small arsenal to his advantage. The graphics definitely hold up with some impeccable lighting, awesome character models, and is followed up with an awesome map with stunning environments. Basically, Mafia Definitive Edition holds up incredibly well, and for anyone hungry for a gangster open world crime game, It does not hold back. This is that game. I honestly feel if I was to score my experience with this game out of 10, it's a solid 9.5 even in 2023, probably the best game I've gotten around to playing this year. Incredible game and a must play honestly. If you've been putting this game off, you need to stop, pick up that damn controller, because you are missing out. But that's all I have to say for this video. Thank you so much for watching. This game was a really fun playthrough, and I hope my review, if anything, inspires you to check this game off your to-do list, because it is worth it. Having played this game, it inspired me to pick up the sequel immediately, which I've just done this second, so expect a review on that soon. I also plan to do more Mafia content, so stick around if that's your sort of thing. Thank you all so much for watching, and I appreciate it. I'll see you soon.
All officers, search is called off. Repeat, abandon search. Return to patrols.